Welcome to Israel Now News. I'm Rebecca Roberts.
And I'm Yochanan El Rom.
In our top story, the European Union's confidential plan to take over the biblical heartland of Israel and claim it for the Palestinians has been exposed. A leaked report entitled European Joint Development Program for Area C details the EU's agenda to strategically claim areas of Judea and Samaria and place them under the control of the Palestinian Authority. For years, the EU has been funding illegal construction in the biblical heartland, creating a threat to Israeli sovereignty in the region while posing a serious security risk to Jewish communities in the area. Dozens of outraged Israeli members of Knesset penned a letter to the heads of the EU protesting what they called the one-sidedness and animosity of the organization towards the State of Israel and the Jewish people. They wrote this plan has but one goal: to subvert the deep, indestructible bond between the Jewish people and its homeland. Bezalel Smotrich, the leader of the religious Zionism party, blasted the program, saying the blatant involvement of the EU in the Palestinian Authority's efforts to unilaterally establish a de facto Arab terrorist state in the heart of Israel is unacceptable, contrary to international law, and incompatible with basic rules of diplomacy in relations between countries.
Turning to politics, and incoming Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has successfully formed a coalition for Israel's 37th government. The leader of the Likud party has constructed a stable, conservative, and religious bloc, which the Israeli public is hoping will usher in an era of peace, security, and economic prosperity.
The Israeli Defense Forces has published images of rocket launchers strategically placed near several schools in the Gaza Strip. In a statement released in Arabic, English, and Hebrew, the IDF said that over 1,000 innocent students attend the 3 schools that Hamas uses for terrorist activities. It added that the cynical exploitation of schools proves once again that the Hamas terrorist organization consciously chooses to endanger Gazan civilians and uses them as human shields to benefit their terrorist agenda. This announcement comes after the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian Refugees revealed that it had discovered a terror tunnel dug underneath one of its schools in Gaza.
The lower house of the Parliament of Oman has voted to expand its boycott law of Israel. The Consultative Assembly agreed to extend its anti-Israel embargo to include sporting, cultural, and economic dealings with the Jewish state. It also forbids its citizens from person-to-person or online contact with Israelis. The Assembly's Vice President, Yaqub al-Harthi, explained that the amendment will expand the criminalization and the boycott of Israel. Benjamin Netanyahu made strides in creating ties between Jerusalem and Muscat during his previous term as prime minister when he visited the Gulf state in 2018. He secured a commitment from former Sultan Qaboos bin Said to open Omani airspace to Israeli flights, which would shorten travel time to India, but the Sultan's successor canceled that agreement. Netanyahu has made it clear that he plans to revitalize the Abraham Accords, which resulted in the normalization of ties between Israel and the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Morocco, and Sudan. He plans to reach out to other Arab nations, including Oman, in hopes of bringing them into the network of countries with diplomatic ties with the Jewish state.
The Jewish state of Israel continues to be the only place in the Middle East where Christianity is growing and thriving. Israel's Central Bureau of Statistics has released its end-of-the-year figures, which reveal that Israel's Christian population has increased. Israel is the only Middle Eastern country where Christians are protected and encouraged to practice their faith openly. This, unfortunately, is not the case with the Arab countries surrounding Israel and the areas controlled by the Palestinian Authority, where Christians face relentless persecution.
Lebanese authorities have arrested a Hezbollah supporter for the assassination of a UNIFIL soldier in mid-December. 23-year-old Sean Rooney was killed and 2 other peacekeepers were injured when their convoy was surrounded and then ambushed by villagers. Hezbollah denied involvement in the attack, but Lebanese forces detained the individual, who is said to be affiliated with the Iranian-backed terror group.
The Jewish state is celebrating the aliyah, or immigration, of 70,000 new Israelis in 2022. This is the largest immigration to Israel in 23 years. These new Olim hailed from 95 countries around the world, the largest groups coming out of Russia and the Ukraine. Keren Ayesod, the official fundraising organization for the State of Israel, launched a massive campaign to raise funds for both Ukrainian and Russian immigration at the onset of the war in Ukraine. Many Christian supporters of Israel have answered the call and donated significant funds to help these new citizens with their immigration and absorption in the Jewish state. 2023 is predicted to be another record year, with many Jewish immigrants coming from the four corners of the earth.
Moscow is demanding ownership of 3 churches in Jerusalem. The Kremlin announced that it will submit claims in Israeli courts for the Church and Monastery of Mary Magdalene, the Chapel of the Ascension, and the Viri Galilee, or the People of Galilee Church. All 3 of these historic houses of worship are located on the Mount of Olives in Jerusalem, just outside the old city walls. The move is seen as an attempt by Russian President Vladimir Putin to regain popularity in his country after his military failures in Ukraine. Alex Tinzer, a former Russian activist, explained that the demand for the churches has an international aspect, as they are considered sacred throughout the entire Christian world.
Christians are visiting Israel in record numbers, bringing hope and inspiration to the Jewish people. The Ministry of Tourism estimates that 1.2 million Christians came to Israel in 2022, making up about half of all incoming tourism to the Jewish state. More than 135,000 Christian pilgrims visited the Holy Land during the recent holidays. A spokesperson with the tourism ministry said there is a significant increasing global interest in Israel as an attractive tourist destination that offers a unique mix of religious, historical, and cultural sites, excellent climate, a vibrant culinary and entertainment scene, and a varied landscape.
Israel has ranked 4th among the best-performing economies in countries belonging to the OECD, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. A report compiled by The Economist lists Israel's economy in the top 5 OECD countries and cited Israel's well-performing economy as one of the pleasant surprises in 2022. And in related news, the Jewish state has reported that its exports drastically increased last year. The country has seen consistent improvement in the field of exports over the past decade, but 2022 showed a sharp increase. End-of-year data from Israel's Ministry of Economy and Foreign Trade Administration shows that Israel's exports of goods and services amounted to at least $160 billion. The city of David has announced that it will fully excavate the Pool of Siloam and open it to the public. The book of 2 Kings, chapter 20, verse 20, describes King Hezekiah's construction of the water cistern 2,700 years ago. It diverted water from the Gihon spring into the city and stored it in a series of tunnels. The ingenious innovation kept water flowing into Jerusalem during the Assyrian invasion in the year 701 before the Common Era. The Pool of Siloam was so strategic that it was renovated at the end of the Second Temple period. The Israel Antiquities Authority revealed that it plans to fully expose the pool for the first time since its construction. A Jerusalem mayor, Moshe Leon, praised the announcement, saying, "The Pool of Siloam and the City of David National Park in Jerusalem is a site of historic, national, and international significance." He went on to say that after many years of anticipation, we will soon merit being able to uncover this important site and make it accessible to millions of people visiting Jerusalem each year. As 2022 comes to an end and we begin a new year,
we at Israel Now News would like to wish all of our viewers a happy, healthy, and safe year, and we'd like to invite you to visit Israel in 2023.
As they say in Hebrew,
Lashana Ba'a B'Yerushalayim.
Next year in Jerusalem.
That concludes the news portion of our show. Stay tuned for Ask the Source with Josh Reinstein.
Hello and welcome to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein, and we're here in our beautiful studio in Jerusalem. My guest today is Brooke Goldstein. She's the CEO and founder of the Lawfare Project. Brooke, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Brooke, tell our viewers a little bit about what is the Lawfare Project.
So the Lawfare Project is the world's preeminent Jewish civil rights litigation fund. We're also operational like a public interest law firm. We provide pro bono legal support and financial support to Jewish communities around the world who are discriminated against, and we bring groundbreaking lawsuits, civil rights lawsuits on behalf of Jewish communities also around the world. We tackle the campus issue, we tackle workplace discrimination and, anti-Semitism and Jew hatred in general. Whenever a Jewish person or Israeli company or organization is treated differently, is discriminated against because of their identity, their cultural, religious, ethnic identity, we come to their support.
You recently launched a campaign called End Jew Hatred. Can you tell us a little about that?
Sure. So End Jew Hatred, if you can believe it, is the first ever Jewish civil rights movement in modern history. There has never been a Jewish civil rights movement in North America, if you can believe it. There's been obviously the Zionist movement, which, as you know, was founded 125 years ago by Theodor Herzl, but it was a movement to establish self-sovereignty in Israel, in our ancient homeland. There was the Soviet Jewry movement, which got a lot of people out on the street, thousands of people out to advocate for Jews elsewhere, for Jews in the Soviet Union. But the End Jew Hatred movement centers around the Jewish people as a minority community in the West deserved of equal protection. And we use the strategies and tactics of other 21st century minority rights movements to mobilize the Jewish community to stand up for themselves, to engage in direct actions, and to ensure that there are consequences for Jew hatred. The most important thing to know about End Jew Hatred is that it is a civil rights movement. It is not a pro-Israel advocacy group. It is not another 501c3 charitable organization. It's a movement. And if you believe in ending Jew hatred in your lifetime, you are part of the movement.
Well, it feels like Jew hatred is actually getting worse, not better. I just read a statistic that there are 2.4% of the population in America is Jewish, but 67% of the hate crimes. How do you explain this?
It's insanity. Well, it's interesting. Noah Tishby actually just did a presentation on AIPAC, and I think she said it really well. Why are we all surprised, right? If you are a student of history, you know what the Torah says. In every generation, they will rise up against us. But I think the crucial mistake that we're making is that we're spending millions of dollars and so much effort in fighting anti-Semitism, in trying to convince people to like us, and trying to convince people to like Israel. I don't think that strategy is working. You look on campus, you look at the last 12 years, it's not moving the needle in the right direction. The strategy should be to unify the Jewish people, to empower the Jewish people so they have pride in their identity, so they're knowledgeable about their history, and to ensure consequences for Jew hatred, to make sure that people who engage in anti-Semitism have societal, political, and legal consequences. And the way that we do that is through grassroots mobilization. We have to learn from other minority rights movements that, by the way, Jews have been behind, right? The Black civil rights movement of the 50s and the 60s, the women's rights movement, the new women's movement, even the Stop Asian Hate movement. They're all using the tactics of grassroots mobilization, going into communities, training leaders, providing micro grants, and educating them and teaching them the strategies that work to ensure there are social consequences for bad behavior. That's what we need to do.
But there are many organizations that are in America for the last, many decades, like the ADL, that were designed to try to stop anti-Semitism, yet the situation's getting worse. Where are they going wrong?
It's really tragic what's happened with the ADL. They have become totally politicized. If you look at the internet right now, you'll see they're being widely accused of operating as though they're an arm of the Democratic Party. They just formed an alliance with the NAACP to encourage a corporate boycott of Twitter, weaponizing charges of anti-Semitism, right before a midterm election. This is highly politicized. And when we politicize charges of anti-Semitism, we are hurting the cause of minority rights.
Brooke, there are literally tens of millions of people watching the show. What message do you have for our viewing audience?
We have to start using the strategies and tactics that have worked for other minority rights groups. We must center Jewish advocacy around the Jewish community as a minority community deserved of equal protection. And we must ensure that the Jewish community as a minority community is on par with other minority communities. That is, if we see anti-Black racism, if we see male misogyny targeting women and we criticize that, so too must we act the same when it comes to Jew hatred. It is absolutely unacceptable that Vogue magazine cancels Kanye but features Bella Hadid, or Adidas, for example, cancels Kanye but then puts Bella Hadid as the cover, as the representative of the Balenciaga Adidas partnership. You cannot politicize anti-Semitism. You can't go after one Jew hater because you don't like their politics, but allow the others. This harms us as a community. We have to confront Jew hatred, whether it's from the left, whether it's from the right, equally in all respects.
Thank you, Brooke, for being on the show. And thank you for tuning in to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein. Now back to the studio.
Up next, the return to Zion with Karen Hayesod.
Shalom and welcome to the Return to Zion with Karen Hayesod. I'm Sam Grunberg, World Chairman of Karen Hayesod, the leading official fundraising organization for the State of Israel. This week, we will learn about the righteous among the Gentiles. Throughout Israel's modern history, many Christians have risked their lives and the lives of their families to defend the Jewish people and God's covenant with Israel.
As the Nazis ruthlessly set about their demonic plan to eradicate the Jewish people, Europe became an accomplice to humanity's darkest hour. While the Nazi gas chambers and killing fields extinguished the lives of 6 million Jews, Europeans overwhelmingly turned a blind eye to the horror unfolding, or worse, became accessories to genocide. God's compassion appeared to have abandoned Europe, an entire continent devoid of humanity. Yet a handful of people refuse to forget the Bible's teaching in Genesis 1:27. God created man in his own image. Unimaginably risking their own lives, these people demonstrated that even in Europe's sea of darkness, human kindness and mercy can shine through. Seeking nothing in return, these Christians jeopardized everything in order to save Jews from facing certain death. Often hiding entire Jewish families for months, sometimes years, they lived in constant fear of discovery and cruel retribution at the hands of the Nazis.
Et quand moi j'allais pleurer, si je puis dire, pour qu'on prenne les enfants, et quand je racontais ce qui s'y passait, qu'on arrachait les gens de leur maison, on lançait leurs vêtements par la cage d'escalier, on les emmenait par camion à Malines.
In appreciation of their remarkable deeds, these angels on earth have been honored by Israel as the righteous among the nations. Exactly how many Jewish lives were saved by these brave individuals, we don't know, but they joined the hundreds of thousands of Holocaust survivors that Karen Hayesod supporters helped extricate from Europe's inferno to reach Israel. They came from 51 countries, from all churches, from all walks of life, from remote farms, city slums, universities, high society, and beyond. They were bound by just one thing, the determination to preserve humanity in the face of all evil. Some of their stories are well known, the likes of Oskar Schindler and Raoul Wallenberg, but lesser known heroes too, such as Adolf Althoff, Father Hubert Solis, and Leopold Socha, showed the same unimaginable courage. All carried a bright torch of humanity in a Europe enveloped by moral darkness. Avraham Savion was just 9 years old when the war broke out. At the age of 12, he was taken in by a Christian family who risked their lives and the lives of their children to save this one Jewish boy. When word got out that they were hiding a Jew, they arranged for Avraham to be taken in by a church where other Jewish boys were hiding out as well. There, they provided for his every need until he was reunited with his relatives.
ז'אן דלין, הוא היה נסיך בלגיה, והוא הציל ילדים ממוות בטוח. ואחרי שעברתי כמה מקומות הסתר, פגשתי אותו פעם ראשונה בכנסייה בתוך הטירה. הייתה כנסייה פרטית שלו, שהכומר החליט לקחת אותי ולשים אותו נער כנסייה, זאת אומרת. אני עוזר, הולך אחרי הכומר, מחזיק לו את הגלימה, מחזיק לו את הנר, או דברים כאלה. משרת אותו בזמן שהוא עורך את התפילה. חסידי אומות העולם הצילו אותנו. אלו והנזירות והמורות וכולם הצילה אותי במיוחד. הגעתי למקום מנוחה אחרי מרדפים שנרדפתי כל הזמן. הם החיו אותנו, נתנו לנו חיים חדשים.
The righteous among the nations helped fulfill the divine wish to restore the people of Israel to their land. The descendants of those saved today number in the millions, building their lives in the Jewish state with the help of Keren HaYesod. Today, 70 years after the Holocaust, too many Jews still remain in distress and danger in perilous corners of the globe. Now is our opportunity to continue the legacy of the righteous among the nations by assisting in the rescue of these Jews to make a new life in the land of their forefathers.
Let's bless Israel together.
To donate and get information, visit khisrael.org.
And now, shining light from Israel.
The Old Testament tells us how people that are shepherds and farmers lived at the ancient time. These scriptures come to life, connecting you to the people of Israel. Here we are in Ne'ot Kedumim, the biblical landscape reserve in Israel, the biggest botanical garden in Israel, which sits on the slopes of Samaria Hills, which are behind me, and located in the area which is called Modi'in, the land of the Hasmonites and the Maccabees. This reserve spreads on 625 acres. These hills are dotted with olive groves, vineyards, wheat fields. So join me to explore Ne'ot Kedumim. In Ne'ot Kedumim, the scriptures come to life. Visitors can tour the land. You can learn how people lived at the ancient time. See the different plants that are mentioned in the scriptures. You can also plant trees, put your roots in the land. You can herd the flock and learn how to be a shepherd. You can meet a Torah scribe and understand his work. You can make your own biblical meal on open fire. You can feel the Bible. And when I say feel, I mean with all your senses. You can see, smell, taste, touch, and hear. most of the shrubs and some of the animals mentioned in the Old Testament, the New Testament, Mishnah, and Talmud. The main idea in this reserve is to put the text in its context. And when we talk about the text, we talk about the Old and the New Testament. And to understand it, we have to go back in history time to the time of the Israelite in the land of Israel. At the ancient time, when the Israelite entered this land, they became shepherds and farmers. The herd, the flock which is behind me, is a good example for that, because we have a whole chapter in the book of John, chapter 10, that talks about the importance of the herd, which is the people of Israel. And when you understand it, you can understand why is it so important, and this is what we do here in this reserve. Here we are near a cistern, 2,000 years old. Picture it, because you can see it's an old stone. One of 64 cisterns we found here in this Jewish village from the time of the Second Temple, the time of Jesus in the land of Israel. The Old Testament tells us in this land the most important thing is water. You cannot live here without water. It rains only half a year without a drop of rain. So for that, you need a cistern. This cistern collects rainwater. And if you don't have this water, you will have to leave the land, like Abraham did and like Jacob's sons did. We have a special program for family groups. Small groups can come and enjoy everything. Sheep herding, a tour, and tree planting together in one package, because here you can actually understand the people that lived here at the ancient time. Thank you for joining us. We look forward to seeing you here in Neot Kedumim.
That's all for this edition of Israel Now News. I'm Rebecca Roberts.
And I'm Yochanan Elron, reporting from our studio in Jerusalem. Please join us again next week for all of your Israel updates.